Jake Busey, and you're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Berges.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Berges. You know, in today's live video, we're going to talk about timing. Do you have enough time to get stuff done that you need to get done? Do you feel like you're having a fulfilling life? Do you feel like things are happening for you? And you know, one of the things that happens to us a lot of times more than not is that we find ourselves doing things for other people and taking care of other people, but we're really not taking care of ourselves. So on today's video, I want to ask you, how many distractions do you actually have in your life right now? I think more often than not, we don't realize the amount of distractions we have, and we really don't even realize what format the distractions come in. Okay, and so this is a big deal that we want to talk about in today's video. So first off, think about it. Do you have enough time to do what you want to in your own life? Or do you feel like you're constantly not being able to get the stuff done that you want? Do you feel like you're constantly having responsibilities, taking care of this, taking care of that, helping someone else out, and you feel like you're lost in the shuffle? If you're feeling that way, and also if you feel like you're kind of saving other people, taking care of other people, or what have you, this is something that you need to watch. So my first question to you is, how many distractions do you have in your life right now? And distractions can be anything. So it doesn't have to be just one thing. Distractions could be anything in your life. And so in this video, I want to talk about these distractions, what they look like, and what format these distractions come in, right? Because more often than not, we don't know what our distractions are. Our distractions can be people, it can be things, it can be all kinds of stuff. So let's begin the conversation on distractions when they come in the format of a friend. Okay, more often than not, we don't realize when our friend is the distraction. We have no idea because we want to have friends in our life. Friends matter to us. It's so important for us to have friends. And I agree that friends are important. I agree that friends are powerful. But we need to look at our friendship and know that these friendships are really good and positive and healthy for us. And we need to realize when our friends become a project. Okay, more often than not, we can have friends that become the project, and we end up, you know, it's like a fixer-upper. You're constantly helping your friend out, you're constantly doing what you need to do, and you kind of feel depleted after a certain point. And it's not that you're not supposed to be there when the tough times are. Obviously, your friendship is good and the tough times and being there, but when you're constantly like rebuilding a house when it comes to your friend, you really need to look into what you're doing with that friendship. Is it a real friendship, or is this a project, okay? And I know that we can all be in need, and we can find the concept where I might need somebody at one point in time, you might need somebody at one point in time, but we need to really look at that relationship and see it. Is it a real friend, or has the tables been turned and the identities have changed? Okay, one of the things that I find more often than not is that you can start as a friendship, but you end up becoming like a parent. You end up becoming like a caretaker when that is not your responsibility. But the interesting part about it is that you decided to allow that to be. You decided to take that up and actually do that and take that role. So what made you take that role, and what was the concept behind that? More often than not, what do? We actually decide to be the caretaker. We decide to be the savior. We decide to be the parent. Because of why? Well, think about it. We're very powerful beings, right? We're very intelligent, and we can create a lot of things around our life. And we can also create distractions in the form of a friend. For example, well, I mean, my friend really needs me. I really need to be there for her. You know, her problems are large, but we can work it out. And as you're working through your friend's problems, which you're being a good friend to, the only problem is that you're not dealing with your own issues. Okay, and that's something that we do more often. So we put their issues on the forefront, we put our stuff on the back burner, and we never get to that stuff. There's two reasons why we never get to it. One, their stuff is a lot easier to solve than our stuff. Okay, I'm just telling you, everybody else's problems seem a lot smaller than our own, right? That's just reality, because we're in the middle of the issue. We're not in the middle of their issue. You know, the second thing is that we really don't want to deal with our own issues. It's easier to just let it be back on the back burner and say, well, I had all this stuff going on. I had to deal with her stuff. I had to deal with his stuff. I had to be there. If I wasn't there, things wouldn't have gotten taken care of. If I wasn't there, things wouldn't have worked out successfully. Okay? So we become the hero to some degree in our heads because we say, well, we saved the day. We saved the day. Okay? But also, we become the anti-hero in our own life because we're not doing things for ourselves that we need to do. So one of the first things I want you to ask yourself right now as you're watching this video, maybe writing it down in a journal, maybe putting it in your phone, typing it out, who are some of the friends in your life right now that are kind of distractions to you? Who are those friends? And I'm sure that you have some wonderful friends, but what friends are more of a project than an actual friendship? And I want you to kind of think about that because that's some powerful stuff that we need to think about. That's some powerful stuff that we need to peruse and understand. Also, the other thing too is that there can be some friends that are in need and help, but there needs to be an upcurrent as well. There needs to be a give and get, a give and get and a flow of energy. And if that's happening, then that sounds to be like a positive, healthy relationship. However, if you're dealing with people outside of this that always need direction, always need comforting, high maintenance, maybe you're dealing with some narcissistic friends, okay, that it's always about them. And so every time you hang out with them, it feels like you're giving all your energy away, you feel like you're being depleted of energy, and you feel like you're having to cater to their ever beck and call. This is a big deal. So when you're dealing with these types of friends, I want you to think about that because I want you to realize that having narcissistic friends in the beginning without knowing is one thing, but once you see the red flags, you've got to decide, is your life important? Because when we're dealing with folks that are dealing with narcissism, it is about them, and you are at their beck and call. Okay, and so it's a very high maintenance relationship. It's a very one-sided relationship. And is that the kind of distraction that you want to have in your life when you're trying to set up a career, you're trying to go back to school, whatever that looks like, starting a family, being married, and the list goes on. Definitely things that you want to think about, okay? Another thing about friendships as well is that we have a tendency of finding people that become distractions that we're always bailing them out, okay? Do you have friends right now in your circle that you feel as though you're constantly bailing them out, that you feel like you're constantly, well, it seems like you're just kind of the savior all the time? And the thing that I find is that the savior complex started at an early age. The savior complex started just like that whole victim complex that we can have as well, started kind of in the historical beginning. So if we were raised in a family dynamic where we were constantly saving mom out of problems, or constantly saving dad, or constantly saving our sisters or brothers or what have you, that's something that we definitely want to think about. That's something that we want to realize that we're actually kind of setting ourselves up for this situation, and we need to be aware that we're bringing that into our other relationships. So if you find yourself constantly bailing someone out, that's something that you might want to think about. That's something that you actually want to maybe look at and decide, am I doing this for the right reasons, or am I doing this because this is the way I've been programmed? Okay, because once we're programmed to be the savior, that is something that's consistent. I recently had a client that came into my office and ran into a friend, and they had been in high school together. They hadn't seen each other in a long time. And it had been years, it had been 15 years, and they hit it off, and they became like really good friends, like fast friends, which can be a sign of codependency, but very fast friends. And on the second day they went to go hang out, the folks were there to actually take to repossess this person's car. And so that was like day 2. And so they were paying the people that were going to take the car away, they were paying that to keep their friend's car, and nothing ever really changed from that. So it seemed like every other day they were bailing someone out. Now, one of the things that I want you to think about is in this situation, that particular friend has some situations that they have to solve, right? But are you the one to always solve it for them? Because when we always solve problems, and I don't want to say always and never, but when we're constantly solving problems for somebody else, we're not allowing them to solve their own issues, okay? So we're actually getting in the way of their solid growth and them being who they need to be to have a good, solid life. And these are things that I want you to think about. When we return, we're going to be talking about the distractions in the form of activities, and then later on distractions in the form of romantic relationships. So I hope this helps, and we'll really talk about those distractions, be able to point out those distractions so you can understand them and understand to take a tally of those distractions in your life. So I hope this video helps you. We're going to go to a quick break right now and live your true life perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Berges, will be back in. I'll be back this time in 2 shakes. Are you currently in a toxic relationship and unsure what the next day will bring? Have you often wondered if there's more to life than this? Do you suffer from self-esteem issues that you've had since you were a young child? Have issues or have difficulty speaking with your family? Do you feel surrounded by self-centered people? Seems as though you're always giving and they're always taking. If you've answered yes to any of these questions, you need some answers. The 10-day challenge to live your true life gives you the knowledge and techniques for creating boundaries in your life that help us to deal with family, as well as dealing with those narcissistic and toxic people in your life. It offers the insight into understanding and overcoming your self-esteem issues, and to begin to see for the first time your amazing value. You owe it to yourself to find the power within you. Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Berges. On today's show, we're talking about distractions in your life, taking that tally, taking that inventory of who is distracting your life from your successes, your motivation, and doing what you need to do in your life. By the way, I just wanted to let everybody know we did a live show yesterday, and unfortunately that live show never made it back up to YouTube. So just in case you had made some comments, we couldn't respond back because unfortunately the video was lost forever. If anybody also had some great comments or donations, I believe those were lost as well. So unfortunately, we still haven't been able to recapture that. We are connecting with YouTube right now. We've asked some questions, but unfortunately the video is nowhere to be found from the live show, and neither are the comments or anything that matters. So I appreciate you participating yesterday. Unfortunately, we weren't able to see that. Today we're trying to make some changes to that so we can see the live participation, so we can be a part of it in the moment. So again, apologies, but if we can ever find that video back and find the comments, we will comment. So let's get into the distraction part like I was just talking about. We were talking about distractions that come in the form of friends right before the break. And the important thing about this video, and the reason why I'm doing this for this content, is because we have a tendency of becoming the savior in a lot of people's lives. We have the tendency of seeing other people's lives as easier to fix than ours because it looks easier because it's from the outside. Remember the last time you had a huge problem that you were dealing with and it just felt insurmountable and overwhelming? It felt that way because you were in the middle of it. So, this is something you really want to think about, because if we're constantly bailing our friends out or constantly dealing with high maintenance folks or narcissists in our life, or we are just drawn to that because of historical reference to save people, we need to realize that we need to be doing some saving for ourselves as well. So let's talk about distraction in the form of activities, because this is a big deal, because a lot of times we don't realize that we're taking away from what we need to do by spending the time doing not necessarily the right things for us. Maybe we're going to events or doing things that we think we should be doing, but things that we necessarily don't want to do. And that's something that we really want to think about, because that's a powerful situation, because a lot of times in society, we do things that we think we need to do based on what other people are doing, based on what we feel we need to do, based on our upbringing, based on what our friends are doing. But we really need to focus on what is it that we really want to do in our life? What is it that we truly want to create? And what really matters to create the success and that motivation and that kind of that blank slate to allow us to do what we want to do. Another thing that I want you to think about is that sometimes we're doing activities or we're going places that are not propelling our life forward. And I think that's something that you really want to think about is, are these things propelling your life forward? Is this something that you truly want to be doing? Is this what you want to be spending your time with? And those are things that I want you to think about. A lot of times we spend time doing things we don't necessarily need to be doing, things that we think we should be doing, or things that we think we have to be doing because we want to be a people pleaser and we want people to like us. But in reality, what is that giving back to us? What is that doing in our life? What is that changing for us, except for just sapping our energy and taking away our time? And again, that becomes a waste of time in our life. Other things that we need to think about as well is that, we could be doing things to escape from our life too. Are we creating or going with activities like whether drugs or alcohol that we're using to escape from our current reality because we haven't really figured out exactly what we want to do, or it feels so insurmountable to do what we need to do? And so all of these are different distractions that we can actually offset if we just realize that they actually are distractions. Very powerful stuff. And so, a lot of times we find ourselves doing things that we don't like to do, but we're doing it to impress somebody, to be a people pleaser, to do what we think we need to do, or because we just done this from historical record. If we're consistently doing things that are actually getting in the way of our lifestyle, getting in the way of our success, it's something that we need to really curtail and be aware of. The reason why I bring up the concept of distractions is because we have this one life to live and we need to make it the best life we possibly can. And that's what's such a powerful thing. And it's something that we need to do, and it's something that actually truly matters. So thinking about the distractions and activities, thinking about the distraction and the things that we're actually doing is something you want to be mindful of. I also think it's interesting too that we don't really always see those distractions because we are so intelligent. So the idea of having a substance or drinking is obviously a distraction. It distracts us from what we have to do, and it kind of numbs us and it kind of allows us to escape. The only problem with that particular distraction is that eventually it wears off, right? And so once it wears off, we're back at that catch-22, and we feel like we're behind the 8 ball and we're not able to create what we want to create. And we also feel like we are actually, it's even slower for us to get into that success because we feel like it's almost insurmountable to cross that bridge. When I return, I'm going to be talking more about the distractions in romantic relationships. And these things are very important. So we can get distracted in all kinds of relationships, whatever that looks like. And that can happen more often than not. And some of us have a tendency of being, serial relationship people that get distracted in certain relationships because we gravitate to people who their lifestyle or their life or their situation seems actually kind of overwhelming, but we actually feel like we can solve it. We can save them, we can save their situation, and we can make everything work out for them. And one caveat before we go to break is that we can't really solve anyone else's problems. If somebody asks us for advice, that's fine, that's great, but we can't just give out advice freely. We need to be asked for it. But another thing is that we have to allow other people to live their life. We can help them, we can push them along as much as possible, but really, honestly, it's their life to live, and it's for them to learn. And so when we take their life into our own hands, we're doing them a grave disservice. And I think more often than not, anybody that's tried to save somebody knows that usually in the long run, what happens is the person actually is very resentful and angry toward the person that supposedly saved them because they're not happy about what happened. They didn't co-sign on that. And also, they didn't actually do the personal work. So it really doesn't stick and it doesn't work. So stay tuned. I'll be talking about distractions in romantic relationships, and better yet, some of the solutions, some of the things that you can do to be aware of those distractions, to offset those distractions, and to begin to understand where the distractions came from. Live Your True Life Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Berges, will be back in. We'll be back this time in 2 shakes.
Hi, my name is Reginald Harvey, and I'm a wellness champion. I just published the medical memoir Anatomy of a Patient to inspire those affected directly or indirectly by a life-threatening diagnosis. Do you know or have a family member or dear friend who is suffering from catastrophic illness or debilitating disability? This is a conversation that few people are willing to have, and I want to have it with you. You can hear me on Live Your True Life Perspectives with Ashley Berges. For more information, go to reggieharvey.net.
Hey there, friends. I'm glad you're catching the live broadcast of Live Your True Life Perspectives. I've created my very own Patreon page. You can go to Patreon and you can check out my page. The link is right here. It's an amazing platform because I'm able to offer more stuff there, different stuff than I am on the Live Your True Life program, as well as on my YouTube channel. You've probably seen my YouTube channel. We put up new video content every week. And we have a lot of great content on there. But on the Patreon page, I'm able to go a step further. I'm offering group coaching sessions, private coaching sessions, as well as access to exclusive content, like the Celebrity Perspective, Season 1. I won a Telly Award for that this year. You can watch all episodes right here on Patreon. I'm offering you the exclusive chance to come on the radio with me, to be live on Live Your True Life Perspectives, nationally syndicated radio show, to talk about yourself, to talk about your amazing life, and to inspire the Live Your True Life listeners. When you become a member of my Patreon page, you are directly supporting me to help other people to live their true life. I look forward to seeing you on Patreon. Let's inspire one another. Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Berges. On today's show, we're talking about distractions. How many distractions do you currently have in your life right now? And many of us have distractions in the form of friends, activities, even pharmaceutical drugs. Anything like that can be what I call a distraction from who we need to be and what we need to do in our life. Anything that takes us off target from being the highest and the best form of us is a problem. Okay, so we need to be the best form we can be, the best version of us. And anything that's getting in the way of that is getting in the way of our progress and curtailing our progress in that matter. So I had talked about friends being distractions. I talked about activities, drugs, alcohol, all that kind of stuff. And I understand that when somebody does have an addiction to something, that is something that you actually have to work through and get honest, good support for that. And there's once we do take responsibility for something like that, it can change our life forever, because all of a sudden we're realizing our value and that we're worth more than this particular drug or this alcohol. Very powerful. Even cigarettes too, worth more than that. We're worth more than that because our health matters, because we know what we have to do in our life to make some changes, but we also know what we have to do in our life to have the longevity to actually do what we need to do and to create what we need to create. So last but not least, I want to talk about distractions in romantic relationships. One of the things about those distractions is sometimes we get into these romantic relationships and things go crazy. I mean, things get really, really out of control. And it could be with somebody that might be more narcissistic, somebody that doesn't take responsibility for their actions, somebody that's going to basically put you on the hot seat, and so you're constantly defending yourself and over-explaining yourself, which leads to a huge distraction in your life. And so you're participating in so much energy in that particular relationship that you're actually not able to focus on your career, you're not able to focus on your health, you're not able to focus on any of the stuff that really, really matters in the long run. Instead, you're focused on the drama and self-preservation. Another thing that we have a tendency of doing is that when we're trying to save somebody, we're having the savior complex. And I've talked about the savior complex on multiple radio shows, on multiple videos. But when we try to be somebody's savior, when we're trying to help somebody and we're trying to save them from themselves, that's when this becomes a clear distraction. Because that's what we're doing. If you're taking on someone that has a huge addiction that you try to get in the middle of and try to save them from themselves. If you're trying to save them from something, that's when we have to sit back and look at ourselves and say, we are trying to save this person from themselves because we don't want to deal with ourselves. Okay? And a lot of this goes back to the way that we were raised. Okay, and these are the things that we have to deal with, because that goes back to the negative broken record that I talk about. Those negative self-talk, those thoughts that started when we were children. Okay, going back to that and saying, well, I have to be the savior because the only person that's going to love me is somebody that I save or somebody that I'm there, or I have to be the provider. If I'm not the provider, all these different things in our head, right? That allows us to walk into these relationships that causes so much pain. Okay? Another example of being in a romantic relationship with a situation is in a relationship with someone who is currently married. Okay, that's another big distraction that we don't necessarily need in our life. A narcissistic person as well, or you think that you can save them. So these are thoughts that I want you to think about, because when we take on this big distraction in our life, there's not a lot of room for other things. Okay, it's like the same as working an 80-hour job, right? An 80-hour work week. There's not much left of you, right, to do other things. So if you're working that 80-hour work week, you don't have time to really cook dinner. You're not really spending any time at home. If you have a pet, that pet rarely sees you. If you have children, they barely see you at all. So remember, when you have these huge distractions in your life that aren't helping you achieve goals, or helping you to figure out who you are, or helping you to unconditionally love yourself, or helping you to understand your value, these are taking you off target from where you need to be in your life. And these are things that you just kind of want to have a tally of, and you want to start realizing who in my life are really helping me. It's not all about giving to you, but who is give and take in my life, who is really there for me, and who am I really there for them? What is a give and take? Because remember, things have to be reciprocal to actually work. It can't just be somebody constantly taking from you, but it also is part of us because it takes two to tango. So if you're constantly giving and not getting back, what is that within your mindset that's allowing that to be? Is that the codependency? Is that the devaluation? Is that feeling less value, less worthy of having a relationship that somebody's going to give you back as well? Something to really think about. But the more distractions we have in our life, the farther away we get from where we need to be at. And this is extremely important. So just some thoughts here and some caveats here at the end of this video. The first thing is to be aware. To really be aware of what is the distractions in your life. Are there friends that you need to distance yourself from? Okay? Are there friends that you need to emotionally distance yourself from? Are there friends that leave you, but you keep running back after them and chasing them down, and they're not positive folks for you? They're not healthy friends. You need to start thinking about that. Are you in a relationship that you need to be aware of that maybe is not very healthy, that is causing a lot of drama, a lot of stress and anxiety in your life that's taking you off target? Is there any activity or thing that you're doing that's also causing you to kind of escape, but when you're kind of resurfacing that next day, you're feeling even sad, you're feeling upset, you're feeling depressed about what took place? Because anytime that we do something that goes against our values and beliefs, see, there's an issue with that. So what I'm saying is that when we do something antithetical to our beliefs and values, right, we actually hurt our self-esteem and our self-worth even more. And so we need to be aware of the boundaries that we need to create in our life too. But one of the biggest things that I want you to recognize is how often you might be being a savior to somebody in your life and not actually saving yourself and doing what's right for you. And that's what I want you to think about. How often are you trying to save other people, even trying to save them from themselves, and you're not doing any of that work for yourself? And just thinking about that, and just maybe writing that down and journaling. Is there things that I can do to be a better friend to myself? Is there things that I can do to better support myself and what I want to create while I'm on this planet? Am I treating other people better than I treat myself? Am I my worst critic? Am I harshest on myself? Because a lot of times when we give and try to save other people, we have no more energy for ourselves. And so what happens? Our life goes by the wayside, and later on we wake up with a lot of regret. So I hope this video has helped you to really put a thought process into the distractions in your life. You might not have any distractions, but you might have several, and it might come in the form of another human being. Because the last thing that we think of as a distraction is another human being. We don't think about that because we don't realize what the psychological impact is behind it. So if we're trying to save someone, or we're trying to help someone or save them from themselves, this is something that directly relates to the energy and the time that we could be giving to ourselves on an actual project that the person has agreed to do, i.e. you agreeing to work on yourself. And the only way that we can begin to understand that self-worth quotient is to actually start beginning to actually build ourselves up and work on what we need to work on. So recognizing where that savior complex comes from. If you're in the victim complex, where is that coming from? Where are those negative broken record thoughts coming from? And what are those thoughts? And journaling that can be so powerful because that can help you to realize why you get yourself into certain relationships and friendships that might not actually be at your highest good. And also looking back at old cycles to realize how this has been cyclical. And even though it's not the same person or maybe the same activity, but there's that same similarity, and those are those cycles that are in your life, and it goes back to our own personal thoughts and what we think about ourselves. I hope this video has helped you. Please share this with family and friends and anybody that you feel has really taken on someone else as a project and unfortunately have not been looking at themselves to really work on us, because we are a work in progress and we need to spend time and effort on ourselves. I'm not talking about being selfish or egotistical, okay? But I'm talking about spending that a right amount of time focusing on what you can do to better your life, what you can do to better your health, and what you can do to push yourself forward to actually focus on that self-worth, that self-esteem, and to also be honest and have that self-honesty with yourself to create some lasting change that you can begin to look back and realize all the successes that you've had based on that personal motivation and that personal dedication to your life. Hope this video has helped you. Please add the comments in the comment section below and let us know what you're thinking about those distractions. Do you have any distractions? Have you had distractions in your life? And how did that work to overcome those distractions? Thank you so much. I hope this has helped you, and live your true life perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Berges, will be back in. I'll be back this time in 3 shakes.